Hello. Welcome to another daily dose. Daily dose. Another dose of the day. I'm going to fix my words Monday, but until then, you're going to get the unedited, unfiltered version of life because customizing and creating absolutely is a beautiful and fantastic thing. And also our other types. So, unedited. You like it. We're gonna jump right in because I'm trying to be a little overambitious. A little ambitious. We're not being overambitious. We're actually trying to do these things. These are goals. And I'm not piling too many in them so that they're unachievable. We only have 5 books. We can do 5 books in an hour. I'm a little tired. I worked 23 hours in the past 2 days. It was a long time to be working in a 48-hour time span. But we are recovering, we are recuperating, we are resting, most importantly. And like very mildly recuperating, just like I slept in today. Ho. Anyways, we're gonna start with how far you have come. Oh, that's why I thought about not doing this. I kind of lost my voice yesterday because working 23 hours in a job that constantly requires you to talk kind of makes your voice a little sore. And I was squeaking and cracking by the end of the night last night because I definitely screamed, and I had a 30-second break where I went in a small room by myself and screamed for a very short period of time just to let it out, because engaging with the public in a non-stop format is quite exhausting. Yeah, anyways, so my voice is a little cracked. Sounds a little weird. I don't want to be coughing the whole time, so we're gonna see how this goes. My mildly dirty socks, mildly clean. They're just matted because I've been wearing them. I don't know how good. I don't want to stop this and redo this if it sounds bad. Fuck. We're gonna go for it anyways. How Far You Have Come. Musings on Beauty and Courage by Harper Nichols. How far you have come. You tap your fingers along the dashboard. Detour. As the hours go on, street lamps glare into your eyes as they fight against the approaching night sky. Red taillights. You have followed the signs, but the map in your mind tells you this is not the way. You realize there is a way back, but it will take a little longer now. Exit, turn around, try again, refill your tank, turn the key. Oh, how good it is to drive and just keep trying. In the long stretches of wilderness, without street lamps to guide you, you're straight arrows, unreliable. There is nothing for miles. Your head is spinning faster than the wheels treading earth beneath you. But beyond your headlights, the moon still shines above you, and the earth is still steady, spinning on her axis as she did yesterday and the day before that. Oh, and the day before, and before that. Here you are, all alone, but more connected than you think. The forest is thriving, the trees are talking, cicadas roaring, foxes humming. Enjoy their song. Keep traveling to where the wilderness is unraveling. Listen, and let the rhythms of this place bear the weight of your heavy mind. In this life you will find bridges, trails well worn, and broken, unpaved, and abundantly clear. Many others have traveled here. You will meet other travelers on trails, leaving footprints of all sizes, and many will forget to slow down and reflect on all it took to get here, the strength, struggle, progress. See your life with gratitude, joy, and peace. Invite others to join your movement of intentionality. My heart wanders above the pines into the Arctic sky, where I can see their peaks through white clouds, and I rush down to see their roots stretching out into turquoise water. I hover above the tangled summer grass, whose strands braid together over the soil, protecting it, safe here. I remember the stagnant water a few yards behind, leaves floating and abandoned, detached. I blink and I blink and I blink, and with my eyelids next rapid opening, I see before me flickers of red, yellow, and green. The slow-burning July beam of night flying, soft-bodied beetles emerging from their homes beneath the trees, luminescent, shining as they are, not moving very far, away from this lowland, glimmers of lightning and lightning right where I stand. And that is where we are going to stop. I think it's a great place to stop. Also, her format changed, so we're gonna keep it moving. Ba-da-ba. We might not make a whole hour because my throat actually kind of hurts. Maybe reading out loud on a sore throat was not my best idea on a lost voice. I think of it like working out muscles. I just have to keep my tenor a little bit lower so it's not straining as much. But it's like working out muscles. When they're sore and you do a light workout, you actually stop being sore faster than if you just like stretch or like do that workout, but just like a lot minimaler. That's not a lot more minimal. Language is fascinating, and the different rules in different languages and the overlap of grammar structures is so fascinatingly connected, and there's so much overlap. Learning languages is hard 100% once you start recognizing the patterns, and like if you think about it on a very large macro scale, all language came from other language. So every pattern that we presently have had to be borrowed from somewhere and modified from somewhere. And it's not like, oh, we just keep recycling the same ideas. We do in a sense, but we also modify them based off of present circumstances, because no time period in history is like any other time period in history or present. There are pattern similarities, but very, very rarely, if ever, is it the exact same pattern of similarities and differences. Hear the wheeze? Doing great. Gonna keep reading now. This is Your Mind on Plants by Michael Pollan. This is Your Mind on Plants. We have a bookmark somewhere. I'm pretty sure. I usually put bookmarks, and then every now and then I don't. No, I think I'm just farther in. What the hell? Is there really not? There it is. Receipts are very thin. They make great bookmarks because they don't do any damage to your book, and also they are really hard to find. Opium, made easy. It's a great starter. I love this book. Last season was a strange one in my garden, notable not only for the unseasonably cool and wet weather, the talk of gardeners all over New England, but also for its climate of paranoia. One flower was the cause. A tall, breathtaking poppy, with silky scarlet petals and a black heart, the growing of which, I discovered rather too late, is a felony under state and federal law. Actually, it's not quite as simple as that. My poppies were, or became, felonious. Another gardener's might or might not be. The legality of growing opium poppies, whose seeds are sold under many names, including the breadseed poppy, Papaver peoniflorum, and most significantly Papaver somniferum, is a tangled issue, turning on questions of I know I can say it in my head. I'm literally saying it. Oh, we can do this. Of nomenclature and epistemology that it took me the better part of the summer to sort out. But before I try to explain epistemology, nomenclature. But before I try to explain, let me offer a friendly warning to any gardeners who might wish to continue growing this spectacular annual. The less you know about it, the better off you are, in legal, if not horticultural terms. Because whether or not the opium poppies in your garden are illicit depends not on what you do or even intend to do with them, but very simply on what you know about them. Hence my warning. If you have any desire to grow opium poppies, you would be wise to stop reading this now. As for me, I'm afraid that, at least in the eyes of the law, I'm already lost, having now tasted of the forbidden fruit of poppy knowledge. Does publicly reading this count as knowing it? I'll just deny it. I don't grow poppies. At all. I've shown you my plants. I don't grow poppies. I don't have a garden. I have potted plants. As for me, I'm afraid that, at least in the eyes of the law, I'm already lost, having now tasted of the forbidden fruit of poppy knowledge. Indeed, the more I learned about poppies, the guiltier my poppies became, and the more fearful grew my days, and to some extent also my nights, until the day last fall, that is, when I finally pulled out my poppy's withered stalks and, with a tremendous feeling of relief, threw them on the compost, thereby, I hope, rejoining the ranks of gardeners who don't worry about visits from the police. It started out, if not quite innocently, then legally enough, or at least that's what I thought back in February when I added a couple of poppy varieties, P. somniferum as well as P. pauniflorum and P. roeus, to my annual order of flowers and vegetables from the seed catalogs. But the state of popular and even expert knowledge about poppies is confused, to say the least. Mis and even disinformation is rife. I read in Martha Stewart Living that, quote, contrary to general belief, there is no federal law against growing P. somniferum, end quote. Before planting, I consulted my Taylor's Guide to Annuals, a generally reliable reference that did allude to the fact that, quote, the juice of the unripe pod yields opium, the production of which is illegal in the United States, end quote. But Taylor said nothing worrisome about the plants themselves. I figured that if the seeds could be sold legally, and I found somniferum in offer in a half-dozen well-known catalogs, though it was not always sold under that name, how could the obvious next step, i.e. planting the seeds according to the directions on the packet, possibly be a federal offense? Were this the case, you would think there'd be at least Were this the case, I like to speed up as I keep talking, and sometimes if I don't manually check myself back down, I just continually get faster, and then my mouth stops being able to keep up with the increasing exponential speed. Were this the case, that's how it feels like it might. I could be talking at a normal speed and just be a crazy person. Maybe. Were this the case, you would think there'd at least be a disclaimer in the catalogs. So it seemed to me that I could remain safely on the sunny side of the law just as long as I didn't attempt to extract any opium from my poppies. Yet I have to confess that this was a temptation I grappled with all last summer. You see, I'd become curious as to whether it was in fact possible, as I'd recently read, for a gardener of average skills to obtain a narcotic from a plant grown in this country from legally available seeds. To another gardener, this would not seem odd, for we gardeners are like that, eager to try the improbable to see if we can't successfully grow an artichoke in Zone 5 or make echinacea tea from the roots of our purple coneflowers. Deep down, I suspect that many gardeners regard themselves as minor league alchemists, transforming the dross of compost and water and sunlight into substances of rare value and beauty and power. Also, one of the greatest satisfactions of gardening is the independence it can confer, from the greengrocer to the florist, the pharmacist, and for some, the drug dealer. One does not have to go all the way, quote, back to the land to experience the satisfaction of providing for yourself off the grid of the national economy. So yes, I was curious to know if I could make opium at home, especially if I could do so without making a single illicit purchase. It seemed to me that this would indeed represent a particularly impressive sort of alchemy. I wasn't at all sure, however, whether I was prepared to go quite that far, I mean, opium. I'm not 18 anymore, or in any position to undertake such a serious risk. I am in fact 42, a family man, parentheses, as they say, and homeowner whose drug-taking days are behind him, asterisks. Readers of my last book, How to Change Your Mind, as well as the upcoming chapter on mescaline, will perhaps chuckle at this statement. Not that they aren't sometimes fondly recalled, and the prevailing cant about drug abuse notwithstanding. But now I have a kid and a mortgage and a KEOGH, a co. There's simply no place in my grown-up middle-class lifestyle for an arrest on federal narcotics charges, much less for the forfeiture of my family's house and land, which often accompanies such an arrest. It was one thing, I reasoned, to grow poppies, quite another to manufacture narcotics from them. I figured I knew where the line between these two deeds fell, and felt confident that I could safely toe it. But in these days of the American drug war, as it turns out, the border between the sunny country of the law-abiding, my country, and a shadowy realm of SWAT teams, mandatory minimum sentences, asset forfeitures, and ruined lives is not necessarily where one thinks it is. One may even cross it unawares. As I delved into the horticulture and jurisprudence of the opium poppy last summer, I made the acquaintance of one man, a contemporary and a fellow journalist, who had had his life pretty well wrecked after stepping across that very border. In his case, though, there is reason to believe it was the border that did the moving. He was arrested on charges of possessing the same flowers that countless thousands of Americans are right now growing in their gardens and keeping in vases in their living rooms. What appears to have set him apart was the fact that he had published a book about this flower in which he described a simple method for converting its seed pod into a narcotic. Knowledge that the government has shown it will go to great lengths to keep quiet. Just where this leaves me in his article is, well, the subject of this article. I'm gonna pause here. Salt, Fat, Acid, Heat by Samin Nosrat. We're in the fat still. Oh. I lied. Did we finish this? Oh, no, we didn't. I was going to do these last three. That's what it was. Layering fats. Since fats have such a powerful impact on flavor, most dishes will benefit from the use of more than one kind. This is what I call layering fats. In addition to considering the cultural appropriateness of a particular fat, think about whether it will harmonize with the other ingredients in a dish. For example, if you're planning to finish a fish dish with butter sauce, use clarified butter to cook the fish so that the two fats will complement each other. Pair blood oranges with creamy avocado in a salad, then drizzle everything with agrumato olive oil to amplify the citrus flavor. For perfectly crisp waffles, melt butter to add to the batter, but brush the hot iron with fat that's rendered out of the breakfast bacon. Sometimes you'll need to use multiple fats to achieve different textures within a single dish. Deep fry crisp pieces of fish in grapeseed oil, and then use olive oil to make a creamy aioli to serve alongside it. Use oil to make a supremely moist chocolate midnight cake, then slather it in buttercream frosting or softly whipped cream. Balancing fat. As with salt, the best way to correct overly fatty foods is to rebalance the dish. So the solutions are similar to when you oversalt. Add more food to increase total volume, add more acid, water it down, or add starchy or dense ingredients. If possible, chill the dish. Let the fat come to the surface and solidify, then skim it off. Alternatively, lift food out of a very greasy pan and dab it on a clean towel. leaving the fat behind. Foods that are too dry or need just a bump of richness can always be corrected with a little olive oil or other appropriate oil, or another creamy ingredient, such as sour cream, creme fraiche, egg yolk, or goat cheese to improve the texture and get the flavor right. Use vinaigrette, mayonnaise, a soft spreadable cheese, or creamy avocado to balance out dryness in a sandwich piled high with lean ingredients, or built atop thick, crusty bread. And that is why I put mayo on almost all of my sandwiches. Because they charge for avocado and they don't charge for mayo. America costs money. They literally charge for cheese and avocado, but they don't charge for mayo. So if you need a cheap way to rebalance and balance your sandwiches, add mayo. Keep your other sauces. Like, I put mayo and mustard on a lot of stuff. But mayo, bro. Improvising with salt and fat. Follow the tenets I outline in how fat works to achieve whichever texture you're after. Then refer to The World of Fat, page 72, if you're following along. Like that's happening. To guide you in evoking the flavors of wildly different places. Choose to pan-fry finger-lickin' pan-fried chicken, for instance, in clarified butter for a classic French flavor. If you're craving an Indian-inspired meal and want to dig into that jar of mango chutney in the refrigerator door, change the cooking fat to ghee. If it's a Japanese chicken cutlet you're craving, use a neutral oil studded with a few drops of toasted sesame oil. In all of these cases, the fat must be sufficiently hot to swiftly lead to browning and deliver a crisp texture. Before you bake a birthday cake for your sweetie pie, do a little reconnaissance. Is it the moist, tender crumb of an oil cake she prefers, or the dense, velvety one of a butter cake? Since even I won't recommend improvising when you bake, let this information guide you to a recipe using the right fat to make your honey happy. With what you know about fat and what you know about salt, you'll find that you're closer to riffing than you might think. Fat has a remarkable capacity to affect texture, while salt and fat can both enhance flavor. Practice using salt and fat to improve flavor and texture every single time you cook. If you intend to finish a salad with a shower of creamy ricotta salata, hold back on some of the salt until after you taste a bit of it with its salty garnish. Similarly, when you're dicing pancetta to add richness to pasta all'americana, all'amatriciana, my brain definitely just did a little auto read. That's not what it was. Amatriciana. Wait to season the sauce until after it's absorbed all the salt from the pork. And if a recipe for pizza dough instructs you to add salt after kneading in olive oil, think twice about following it word for word. Start to use what you know to be true to guide you through the vast forests of myth and misinformation that poorly written recipes comprise. I am on autopilot. This is what happens when you work for too many hours and too many days. Without sleep. Insomnia's fun. Ha 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 ha. Improvising begins with notes, and now you have two with which to compose a salt-fat melody. Master a third note, and you'll experience the transcendent harmony of salt, fat, and acid. I believe we started with fats, so we're gonna actually backtrack and do salt. Because, no, I think we did salt. Did we start in the beginning and do all of it? I think I did actually, because I remember talking about them throwing in No, we definitely didn't do all of it, but I feel like I remember this is why I need to keep more notes. No, I don't think we did. I think I just started with fats. I remember there being a story that I read about putting a large handful of salt in a soup and her being nervous about it, and then it tasting absolutely amazing. Yeah, I don't think so. All right. We're actually gonna pause then, and we'll start salt next time. And I'll go through and check and see if I read that one or not. I don't think so. I love the puffy eyes of no sleep. Also, I just have bags, so like it's great. Slavoj Zizek, heaven in disorder. Our communist propaganda openly saying it. It's fine because capitalistic propaganda is not fine. This is literally telling us we should work together. And I'm the bad guy. You all need to know which C word is the scary C word, because it's not communism. They lied. It's not. Look up the definitions. Read books about it. It literally has the root word of community. This is the thing. I really wish that we've actually like we talked more about like what words mean and how we do use them, because these isms are literally about the thing that they talk about. So we have communism, which is about community. We have socialism, which is about social, like society and social aspects, society. And you have capitalism, which is about capital. And we wonder why the goals are to make capital and not to make community and not to make society. The system, the ism is the system. The ism that we're living in right now, that it runs the majority of our reality, isn't about us. It's not about humanity. Communism is about community. Socialism is about society. Capitalism is about capital. We can never make capitalism work for us. Capitalism works for capital. That is the structure of it. Chapter 29, Class Struggle Against Classism. At the ceremony for Joe Biden's presidential inauguration, there was a lone figure who stole the show by We're doing great. This is why I want them unedited, because I want to normalize not being perfect on just a little bit. Like, curated art is dope. I love these videos that everyone puts out. Lots of them are really beautiful. They're awesome. You get your point across more succinctly because it's a better flow because you edited it. So it all like lines up. It makes sense. It sounds better. It's a good delivery. What I'm doing right here, and I do those things in other aspects of my life. Like when I write papers, that's what I like for that. Like when I write it down, so I can deliver in certain things, absolutely. But this I want to be unedited. This I want to have imperfections, because the goal for this is for me to read more. The goal for this is also to encourage reading again, like I'm Trump, haha, and to encourage reading in general among people. And so I remember reading out loud in elementary and middle school and high school sometimes, and I enjoyed reading out loud because I read a lot already on my own, so I could pronounce a lot of things easily. My reading speed was rather fast. But I would practice because I hated if I ever made a mistake. And I saw how embarrassed other kids got and how other people felt, and like how embarrassed I got when I made mistakes and when I stuttered up and when I bumbled my words all together, or it took too long to pronounce something, or I mispronounced something. And like all of those things are normal all the time. Even when I'm not reading, I bumble around my words sometimes. And I want that to be normal. I don't want that to be a discouragement on why people don't read, on why people don't want, or why people don't write, on why people don't communicate in the same, like, bumble around your words. Meander along your path until you get there. You're reading, right? You're intaking it, you're listening. I'm still saying it. We're getting it right eventually. Do we bumble around? Yeah, sure, absolutely. So for this part, this series, I want this to be unedited. I want to have all of my ridiculous mistakes every now and then. Or more consistently on the days when I'm tired. So like, be human, read, mess up, do it again, figure it out. There are so many words that I skip over. Not like don't say, but like the words that I like spell out to you because I'm like, I don't know how to say this. It sounded out really slowly. I don't know what this is. We figured it out. I've looked up words, what they mean on this, like. Perfect isn't real. It's not, you're not supposed to be, you can't. Why? If you achieve it, why does it matter if it's the first or second time? Why does it matter if it's the first or 27th time? You achieved it, right? That is perfect. Chapter 29, Class Struggle Against Classism. Another ism that isn't about people. It's about class. If only. Not that type of class. At the ceremony for Joe Biden's presidential inauguration, there was a lone figure who stole the show simply by sitting there, sticking out as a discordant element disturbing the spectacle of bipartisan unity. Bernie Sanders. As Naomi Klein put it, what mattered more than his mittens was his posture. The slouch, the crossed arms, the physical isolation from the crowd. The effect is not of a person left out at a party, but rather of a person who has no interest in joining. At an event that was, above all, a show of cross-partisan unity, Bernie's mittens stood in for everyone who has never been included in that elite manufactured consensus. Every philosopher knows how impressed Hegel was when he saw Napoleon riding through Jena. It was for him like seeing the world spirit, the predominant historical tendency, riding a horse. The fact that Bernie stole the show at Biden's inauguration, and that the image of him just sitting there instantly became an icon, indicates that the true world spirit of our time was there, in his lone figure, embodying skepticism about a fake normalization staged in that ceremony. The celebration of his image expressed that there is still hope for our cause. People are aware that radical change is needed. The lines of separation appeared clearly drawn between the liberal establishment embodied in Biden versus the democratic socialists whose most popular representatives are Bernie Sanders and Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez. Alexandria, that's not fair to her. Nope, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez. However, something happened in recent weeks which seems to disturb this clear picture. In her interviews and other public appearances, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez engaged herself in defending Biden against attacks from the Democratic Socialist left. In her interview published on March 19th in the Democratic Socialists of America's magazine Democratic Left, she, quote, combines the most lavish praise for the Democratic Party with vicious denunciations of socialism, end quote. As reported by Eric London in her interview, she presents the Democratic Party as having been completely transformed into a working-class party. She says the Biden administration and incumbent Democrats are, quote, totally reinventing themselves in a far more progressive direction, end quote. Pressure from the left has forced almost a radical change among entrenched Democratic leaders. The only barrier to the Democratic Party establishment achieving perfection is left-wing opposition. This politician who made a career criticizing the, quote, Democratic establishment and posturing as an outsider has now transformed herself into the establishment's fiercest defender and a most bitter opponent of outside critics. Along these lines, AOC consequently rejects the leftist critique of Biden as a, quote, really privileged critique, mobilizing the old and very suspicious distinction between good faith critique and bad faith critique. She argues, quote, bad faith critique can destroy everything that we have built so swiftly. We do not have the time or the luxury to entertain bad faith actors in our movement. Parentheses. Incidentally, I remember clearly this distinction from my youth when communists in power regularly opposed constructive criticism to destructive anti-socialist critique. If we do not have time to entertain bad faith actors in our movement, is this not a not so subtle call to a purge? AOC goes further, accusing Biden's leftist critics of betraying their disdain for the poor and oppressed by criticizing the president. She also flirts with identity politics against class essentialism and resuscitates the old liberal left trick of accusing its left critics of serving the right. Quote, when you say nothing has changed, you are calling the people who are now protected from deportation no one, and we cannot allow for that in our movement, end quote. Parentheses. Perhaps it is no wonder that the conflict between AOC and the Democratic Socialists now even involves the police, with media reports that police officers are showing up at the houses of Twitter users who criticize AOC on social media. But AOC's strategy is double here, for at the same time she criticizes the Biden administration for not going far enough in the Green New Deal. For not investing enough in the renewal of infrastructure, and she slams Biden's barbaric border conditions. In this way, she follows a coherent strategy. She wants the radical left to put their trust and faith in the Biden administration, but simultaneously to exert a good faith critique and push it further. The problem I see in this reasoning attributed to AOC. That's the doorbell. I think that's the Amazon package. It scared the shit out of me. Holy fuck. Thank you. You're... I might have to edit this one now. I might actually have to crop some shit out. All it takes is a pause and then you have my fucking address. Shit. All right, so this one's the one that's edited. I lied. There will be a segment missing from this. It will be a very brief one. You're not gonna miss any reading, but you are not gonna... I'm a dumbass. I'm gonna have to watch it. I got a conditioner bar and facial toner. Witch hazel, to be specific, just witch hazel. I'm so disappointed in my blender. I'm just gonna sit in my disappointment for like 30 seconds. I'm gonna do a pace of my disappointment because meh. I am disappointed in myself. Let me get the good lighting so my bags don't look nearly as bad. The sun is setting, that's why it's playing so much. The light is literally changing as we speak. And it can't. There will be a segment missing. It will be very short. There will be a slight jump in the middle of this. So I don't dox myself like a fool. Saying you're talking about rookie mistakes. No, there are certain ones. This is like a safety issue. No sleep. Too much work. Brooklyn! No! Sleep! Tell Brooklyn! No! Sleep! Only work! Okay. The problem I see in this reasoning attributed to AOC is its implicit premise that the radical left goes too far in the direction of class essentialism, thereby neglecting the anti-racist and feminist progress pursued by the Biden administration. But does the Democratic Party really defend the importance of these two struggles against the radical left? And do not some radical feminists and BLM partisans also support the Democratic establishment? Side note. Incidentally, one should note here that the BLM elevation of white policemen shooting blacks as the exemplary image of state violence today is not as innocent as it may appear. The fascinating force of such images of direct violence serves to obfuscate the much more dangerous and widespread racist violence which is largely invisible and enacted daily by members of the liberal establishment themselves. I owe this insight to Angie Sparks. Huh. Basically, what that means is that by focusing on the violence that white policemen do upon black bodies, does two things. First and foremost, it normalizes the violence. We're seeing it all the time. It normalizes it. It makes it something normal to see, which allows it to continue, which is bad. And then two, it draws the eyes away from the establishment itself of the liberal Democrats, who are enacting racist policies as well, who are upholding racist policies, who are participating in racial violence. Like, gerrymandering is racial violence. Redrawing lines is racial violence. Having schools' funds be dependent on the income of the location is racial violence. Like, that's a really good point. Holy shit. And white policemen shoot a lot of black people. Oh my god. I hate America. I love the people. I hate the establishment that is America. And I know that that's terrible to say, but it's true. Like, it's not terrible to hate a system that is designed to oppress the majority of the population. But, I mean, the majority isn't every other human who is not straight, white, male, Christian, Abrahamic. Abrahamic religion is really where it's at. So, if you're not those four things, you're oppressed. You're dehumanized. So, I'm just not really interested, and I strongly dislike. Right, we're just gonna read to this paragraph and then we're gonna move on. A part of BLM broke from the larger movement precisely because of the latter's support for the Democratic Party, or as they put it, to ally with the Democratic Party is to ally against ourselves. The split between the Democratic establishment and the radical left has nothing to do with the issue of class essentialism. The first point to be made here is that, to use the old Mao Zedong's opposition, the conflict between AOC and the Democratic left is not a contradiction between the people and its enemies, but a contradiction within the people itself, to be resolved by debate. This means that, in our case, no side should treat the other as an agent who is secretly working for the enemy. Excuse me. But let's go to the basic question. Who is right in this conflict? Or at least, who is less bad? I am tempted to answer this with Stalin's old formula. They are both worse. How exactly? In some abstract theoretical sense, the stance of the radical left is true. Biden is not the long-term solution, and global capitalism itself is the ultimate problem. However, this insight in no way justifies what one could call a principled opportunism, the comfortable position of criticizing every modest progressive measure as inadequate and waiting for a true movement, which, of course, never comes. So AOC is right in that Biden cannot simply be dismissed as Trump with a human face, as I've also argued. Many of the measures enacted or proposed by his administration should be supported, including the allocation of trillions of dollars towards fighting the pandemic, economic revival, and meeting ecological commitments. Another move of the Biden administration to be taken seriously is the tax reform advocated by Treasury Secretary Janet Yellen, which follows steps proposed by Thomas Piketty, increasing the U.S. corporate tax rate from 21% to 28%, plus putting pressure on the international community to follow suit and raise taxes to a comparable level. This is class essentialism, a push toward economic justice that has to be taken seriously. I agree with Chris Cillizza in that the most important words in Biden's speech to this joint session of Congress on April 28, 2021 are, "My fellow Americans, trickle-down economics has never worked." It's a great line to stop with. And then I can go to start at the top of the page. Nice. Last time we finished The Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, and I was debating on starting The Restaurant at the End of the Universe, but I think I'm going to do that next because I've been really wanting to read this book and not very motivated to read it by myself. So we're going to read it together. Juntos. Yeah, doing this. This book is fascinating. I got it for my birthday a few years ago. And it's one of those stories within a stories. So I really love those. I love the inception aspect of it. And it was found by someone who knew me really well at the time. So that was really cool. And I haven't read it yet. I've just had it on my bookshelf for a minute, for a year and a half, basically. So we're gonna read it. So, J.J. Abrams, Doug Dorst. This book inside is called The Ship of Theseus by V.M. Straka. We're gonna read the back because it explains it better than I can if I just tried to wing this on my own. The sticker on the back says, "What begins at the water shall end there, and what ends there shall once more begin." Fascinating. One book, two readers, a world of mystery, menace, and desire. A young woman picks up a book left behind by a stranger. Inside it are his margin notes, which reveal a reader entranced by the story and by its mysterious author. She responds with notes of her own, leaving the book for the stranger, and so begins an unlikely conversation that plunges them both into the unknown. The book, Ship of Theseus, the final novel by a prolific but enigmatic writer named V.M. Straka, in which a man with no past is shanghaied onto a strange ship with a monstrous crew and launched on a disorienting and perilous journey. The writer, Straka, the incendiary and secretive subject of one of the world's greatest mysteries, a revolutionary about whom the world knows nothing apart from the words he wrote and the rumors that swirl around him. The readers, Jennifer and Eric, a college senior and a disgraced grad student, both facing crucial decisions about who they are, who they might become, and how much they're willing to trust another person with their passions, hurts, and fears. It's really hard to trust another person with your passions, hurts, and fears. It's beautiful when it happens. I do believe the name of this book is just S, just like this. S, conceived by filmmaker J.J. Abrams and written by award-winning novelist Doug Dorst, is the chronicle of two readers finding each other in the margins of a book and enmeshing themselves in a deadly struggle between forces they don't understand. It is also Abrams and Dorst's love letter to the written word. I'm so excited. All right. The Ship of Theseus. V.M. Straka. So the reason that this book is so cool is because, oh my god, this is a first edition. I love books. I love books because they are other people's ideas. It's like taking a peekaboo into someone's brain and heart and soul, and it's community. Oh my gosh. Okay. I'm such a nerd. My hands are clammy just thinking about it. Okay, so like we're gonna show just a little bit, but like it's this, like there's whole inserts that come out. There's notes to each other. There's love letters in here, and then there's stuff in the margins among the actual story that we're reading. So much Inception and chaos. I love it. I'm so. So this used to be a library book. It says book for loan. It's got a little library sticker on it with the Dewey Decimal System. And now there's a little note in here because we bought it from a bookstore. It says first edition. Ship of Theseus. This is the title page. There's a note on the top that says, if found, please return to workroom B19, main library, Pollard State University. I wonder if the library sticker is part of the inception of the book and it wasn't actually in a... I bet that stamp that says book for a loan was put there on purpose and it wasn't actually in the library. Oh my gosh, I love this. So now there's a back and forth of writing between our two main characters that we're going to fund. So the first is, hey, I found your stuff while I was shelving. It looks like you left in a hurry. I read a few chapters and loved it. Felt bad about keeping the book from you though, since you obviously need it for your work. Have to get my own copy. Jen. There's a reply afterwards. Here, if you liked it, you should finish it. I need a break anyway. Leave it on the last shelf in the south stacks when you're finished. Thanks. Read the rest in one sitting. Wow. Haven't liked a book so much in a long time. I'm a lit major. Loved all the mystery. The book, Straka, all of it. I really needed an escape, I think. Dear undergrad lit major, if you thought it was an escape, then you weren't reading closely enough. Want to give it another shot? Dear arrogant, crossed out arrogant. I made some notes in the margins so you can see how closely I read. But what do I know? I'm just an undergrad. I can't believe you wrote all over my book. I know, it was so presumptuous of me. Don't bother leaving it for me again. Good luck with your work. Oh, and by the way, you've totally missed something important about FX. Caldera. About FX Caldera. Is it that he's a complete crank? Because pretty much every serious Straka scholar ever has thought so. And if you think Caldera was Straka pretending to be his own translator, that's been pretty well covered too. On the page that says also by V.M. Straka, where it lists his other works, there's more notes. Neither. FYI, people might enjoy corresponding with you more if you weren't so condescending. Sayonara, Jen. I'm sorry, really. I wrote some notes in response. Would love to hear your thoughts. Desperate? Maybe so. I know the footnotes are really strange, but what if they weren't supposed to be informative? What if they were signals or messages to someone, like Straka himself? Straka was dead by then. Just saying. I don't think we should assume Caldera was stupid/insane. There's got to be more to it. We? Okay, that was a mistake. Do you still think so? Absolutely. Still? You really need to ask? Ship of Theseus by V.M. Straka. Property of Laguna Verde High School Library. Your book? You stole it from a high school library. How do you know it was me? My keen intuition. Well, they won't miss it. This book was wasted on that place. But think of how many hungry young minds you've deprived of this Straka experience. That's the sound of my eyes rolling. Drew a little eye picture. The characters and events in this book are fictitious. Any similarity to real persons, living or dead, is coincidental and not intended by the author. Translator's note and foreword by F.X. Caldera. Who was V.M. Straka? The world knows his name, knows his reputation as the prolific author of provocative fictions, novels that toppled governments, shamed ruthless industrialists, and foresaw the horrifying sweep of totalitarianism that has been a particular plague in these last few decades. Oh. There's a footnote. There's a footnote after the foreword. It's a good play. I'm gonna have so many comments. We're gonna have to keep this very short. The footnote after the foreword says, this book was to have been published by my former employer, Karsten Son, as all the Straka's previous books were. However, that firm has shut its doors abruptly and without notice to its employee. I have, at considerable personal expense, financial and otherwise, begun my own publishing venture so that Straka's capstone work can be appreciated by the public. It knows him of the most nimble of writers, one whose mastery of diverse literary idioms and approaches was on display from book to book, even chapter to chapter. But the world never knew Straka's face. Never knew with certainty a single fact of the man's life. There's a note on the world never knew Straka's face that says, so why'd you have to leave the library in such a hurry the other night? I didn't want to be seen. By anyone. Nice evasion. Letting it slide, for now. Predictably, though disappointingly, the mysterious of Straka's identity has become more intensely studied than his body of work. Interest in his life story is understandable, certainly, as he is widely acknowledged as one of the most idiosyncratic and influential novelists of the first half of the century. Footnote. Ernest Hemingway expressed his admiration for Straka's books in a 1935 interview in Le Monde. It is well known that Hemingway later became one of Straka's harshest critics. What is less well known is that Hemingway's about-face came shortly after he begged for a personal audience with Straka, and his request was met with indifferent silence. There's a note on that says, evidence? There's nothing in the archives, Straka's or Hemingway's. His appreciative readers wanted to know the man who created the stories they loved, and his enemies wanted to know who he was so he could be silenced. The furor over Straka's identity is particularly intense due to the rumors about his activities and affiliations. Rumors that are fairly bursting with tales of sabotage, espionage, conspiracy, subversion, larceny, and assassination. There's an asterisk after that says how much of this stuff can be true. And there's a conversation in the columns that I'm going to read. So how long have you been studying Straka? Since high school, I guess. So 14, 15 years? Ever wonder if you should be doing something else? No. This is where an empathetic person might ask why. Okay, Why? I'm graduating in May. No clue what to do next. Find what you love, then fight like hell when people try to take it away from you. That sounds like great advice, but I wish it didn't. Isn't it supposed to be easier than that? Depends on what it is. After the sabotage, espionage, assassination, how much of this stuff can be true? Depends on who you ask. Many people and governments did think he was dangerous. Leaked/declassified docs show it. If there's a word, skullduggery, that I'm going to read next in the actual reading, but she circles it and it comes down. I love this word. Please tell me that's not the best you can do. If you're going to help, help. Are you always this charming? Sorry, just feel like I'm racing the clock here. This is one place where a reasonable person would have suggested we meet instead of passing the book. I never claimed to be reasonable. It's in a different color pen, meaning that it's written at one or a few times after they've passed the book back and forth. If there's a category of skullduggery to which Straka's name has not been linked in the popular press, and in some infuriating articles passed off as literary scholarship, I am not aware of it. Perhaps this is to be expected, as Straka's work itself often included secrets, conspiracies, and shadow world occurrences. The author's personal reclusiveness was perhaps the grandest and most provocative of these. There's a paper here. There are two letters. The first one is in German, that's confidential, and then we turn and there is a English translation. It is from Uppsala Universitet. Confidential, August 17th, 1928. Mr. Grant, I read with mild interest the interview you gave to Projectorn in which you discussed the making and selling of the cinematic fiasco that, sadly, shares a title with one of my novels. You told the interviewer that you were certain I would give my blessing to your retelling of the story. I can do no such thing. It is true that you have retold many events contained in my novel, The Santana March, but you have failed completely to tell the story. The story, sir, is one of a man's struggle against the vicissitudes of capitalism and the sadistic exploitation of same by men and women who have sold their humanity to the first bidder. It is not at all the story of a man who is showered with material rewards magically in payment for a simple determination not to die, admirable though it may be. In the story of the Santana March, Jerry Frost receives as his rewards physical injury, public scorn, unjust imprisonment, and alienation from friends and family. Not, as you and Mr. Fontana would have it, a willowy young wife, a blueberry pie, the shaming and repentance of his tormentors, and a puppy. These are my objections to the final 5 minutes of your unintentional homage to greed, exploitation, and complacency. I did not have enough ink, paper, or time to address the first 115 minutes. Suffice it to say that I find them similarly repellent. If it were in my power, I would set fire to every extant print of your film. If you would like to do so yourself, you have my blessing. There is also the matter of your telling the interviewer of your suspicions that I was haunting your shooting locations, eager to enjoy a moment in the glamorous world of film. This is an outright lie. Anyone who presented himself to you as V.M. Straka, or intimated this in any way, was an impostor. I urge you, for your own sake, not to persist in peddling this untruth. I have written this letter because I believe that every writer must stand behind his work, and do so completely and forever. To allow alterations or perversions of the work is unconscionable. It has never been more obvious to me that no one but the writer can understand what his story is, or what is required, or what it requires in the telling. Whatever monies Mr. Fontana has paid to my agents will be returned forthwith. V.M. Straka, please burn this letter once you have read it. Surely you understand that neither of our interests would be served if it were to become public. We'll stop at 2. That'll work. But the focus of the writer and not the work dishonors both. There's brackets around that with a note that says, why, when the question of identity is essential in the books themselves, especially SOT Winged Shoes Coriolis. Only in the author's private life, which was and is nobody's business, might it matter who he was. Parentheses with a note. The few verifiable public statements Straka issued confirm that he, too, believed the authorship controversy was misguided, not to mention a pernicious threat to his safety, liberty, and peace of mind. What are they? Do you have copies? The public statements that Straka issued. Attached. My favorite letter to Graham, ripping film adaptation of Santana March. Hilarious. Makes me feel bad for Gran, though. Did they really? Oh. No, I just added it. It wasn't Grant, it was Gran. There was a colon that I thought was a T. That was, like, not copied well. 19 novels are attributed to Straka, the first being the satirical adventure Miracle at Brexenholm, which was the toast of Europe in 1911, the final one being the book you have in your hand. Brackets. Herein, you will also find extensive annotations that I have contributed for the benefit of Straka's devoted readers and the responsible scholars who study his work. C. Bolton, 1957. Argument that FXX annotations suggest he's schizophrenic. I read it. Idiotic. Guy thinks strong emotion equals mental illness. Went back and reread. You're right. It's so 1950s. Funny no one has gone back to question it. You'd think I would have. Why you? Because I've had people make judgments like that about who I am. Wait, recently? If I say yes, are you going to stop writing? Apparently not. And that is where we are going to stop. Oh, I'm so excited. It's so meticulous, but it's such a fun read. I don't know if it's a fun listen. Well, that is S by J.J. Abrams and Doug Dorst. And that is all for today. I appreciate you all joining. There will be a slight edit in this film, the slightest of edits, so that I do not dox myself. The sky is very pretty out right now. I really like it as the sun sets because this particular window faces east. So I see the sun rise out this window, but the sunset is behind me in my bedroom window. But I get all of the blues that come out because the sun's setting on the other side. So it like gets really like really light blue and really dark blue, and it's really cool. And it's like daylight still. It's dope. It's one of my favorite views. Anyways, thanks for joining everyone for your dose of the day. Ha 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 of D. Catch y'all next time. Nos vemos.